welcome to your Chapter 2, Lesson 2 lesson. What we're going to be doing is we're solving two-step equations. Our objective is actually to solve two-step equations. And the standards we're going to be addressing is 8th grade Equivalent Expression Standard 7, 7A, and 7B. So let's go ahead and jump into our first examples and figure out how to solve a two-step equation. One of the things I want to do before we actually start solving two-step equations is kind of go over what a two-step equation is. A two-step equation is an equation that takes 2 steps to solve. What you want to do in a two-step equation is you want to get your variable by itself. Algebra is all about figuring out what the variable is equal to. So we're going to get the variable by itself when solving two-step equations. The typical steps that we do when solving a two-step equation is step 1. We want to get rid of whatever numbers on the same side as the variable, but not with the variable. Typically, there's going to be something on the same side as the variable, not with it, and we want to get rid of that by adding or subtracting that number. After we get rid of whatever number is not with the variable, we want to get rid of the number with the variable, which is step 2. We get rid of the number with the variable by multiplying that number or dividing that number. Or if it's a fraction, we multiply by its inverse, as we learned in lesson 1. So let's go ahead and look at our first example and see if we can figure out what steps we need to do to get in that variable all alone, which is our goal for this lesson. In our first example, we're going to solve the problem 2 times the number plus 3 equals 7. 2 times x plus 3 equals 7. Now, our goal is to get the variable x by itself. So we need to get the x completely alone. Step 1 says that we need to get rid of whatever numbers on the same side as the variable, not with the variable. So looking at this problem here, we have 2 times x plus 3 equals 7. I'm going to teach you a trick of how to solve these problems, and then maybe you'll figure out how to do this. So I call this my little cheat box. But really, my box is, what is happening to the variable? So in this box, we're going to figure out what's happening to the variable. And once we know what's happening, we know how to undo those operations. In mathematics, to get rid of addition, you do subtraction. To get rid of subtraction, you do addition. To get rid of multiplication, you do division. And to get rid of division, you do multiplication. So we're going to be using those skills to solve problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw a line through the equal sign. I'm going to look at the letter x, and I'm going to tell you what's happening to the x. And I'm going to put that information in the box here. So I'm looking at the side with the x, and I see a plus 3. So I'm going to write that plus 3 is happening with the x. Now, besides the plus 3 on the same side as x, I see 2. So 2 is a number, and I have to figure out what is 2 doing to x. Well, 2 is multiplying to x. So I'm going to go ahead and put a multiplication sign there. What we're going to do is figure out which one of these we typically get rid of first. And if you're reading the previous page, what I said was we want to get rid of the number that's not with the variable that's adding or subtracting by getting rid of it by adding or subtracting. So, looking at this, the number that's not with the variable, 3 is actually not with the variable. It's on the same side, but it doesn't have the variable with it. We're going to get rid of that 3. Since it's plus 3, we're just going to subtract 3. In mathematics, if you do something to one side, you have to do it to the other. 3 minus 3 cancels out. We have 2 x's left equals 7 minus 3 is 4. Now, if I want to solve for the variable x, the only thing we have left to do is we have to get rid of this 2. The plus 3 is gone, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel that out. I no longer see plus 3 in my problem. We're good on that part. The only thing we have to do is get rid of times 2. To get rid of times 2, we do the opposite of times 2, and we divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so there's one letter x right there, equals 4 divided by 2, that's 2. So to this problem here, my answer should be 2. We should check our solution. 2 times 2, that's 4. 4 plus 3, that's 7. 2 would be my correct answer. So what happened was we got rid of adding 3, and then we got rid of multiplying by 2, and we were able to get our answer. So this problem took us 2 steps. Get rid of addition and get rid of multiplication. Let's look at example 2. In example 2, we're going to be solving 5 times the number plus 1 equals 26. We're going to figure out what y is. Now, I do know that some of you might know what number times 5 plus 1 would equal 26, but we still have to go about solving it the proper way. So we got to solve it by doing 2 steps. So what we're going to do is we're going to write our problem down. 5 times y plus 1 equals 26. Our goal is to get the letter y alone. So we're going to go ahead and draw a line through our equal sign, and now we're going to write down what's happening on the side of y. Well, on y side we have plus 1, so put plus 1 over here. And then we have y times 5, so we have times 5. These are the 2 things that we need to get rid of to solve our problem. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get rid of the plus 1. The opposite of adding 1, subtract 1. If you subtract 1 from one side, you have to do it to the other. 1 minus 1 cancels out, and we have 5y's equals 26 minus 1 is 25. Now, to solve for our variable y, we're going to go ahead and divide by 5, and we get y is equal to 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. Now, we're going to quickly check this math in our head. 5 times 5, that's 25. 25 plus 1, that's 26. I get the right answer. I know that this is correct. Now, notice what we did. The first thing we did was we got rid of adding 1 by subtracting 1. So we subtract 1, subtract 1. So this is gone. We get rid of times 5 by dividing by 5. And this ends up going away too. So what happens is, if you know what's happening to your variable and you get rid of those, you'll get your solution. And that's how we're going to approach these types of problems. Let's keep moving on. We're already almost done. Pretty quick lesson and good to go. In example 3, we're going to be working on one that has a fraction with the variable. So we're going to solve it kind of similar to what we've done, as well as what we did in lesson 1. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite my problem. 25 equals 1/4 times n minus 3. I'm going to draw a line through my equal sign. Now in this box here, I'm going to write down what's happening to n. Well, I have subtract 3 and I have times 1/4. So these are the 2 things happening. Well, looking at this box here, I know I should get rid of minus 3 first. So I'm going to get rid of minus 3 by adding 3. And if I add 3 to one side, I need to add 3 to the other. Draw a line. A negative 3 plus 3 cancels out because that's 0. We have 1/4 of a number equals 25 plus 3, that's 28. Well, in lesson 1, we learned that if we have a fraction next to a variable, if we want to get rid of that, all we have to do is multiply by its inverse. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply by 4 over 1 on one side, and multiply by 4 over 1 on the other side. This side, the 1/4 and 4 over 1 is going to cancel out to equal 1 variable n is equal to, now I can put this over 1, and I'm just going to go ahead and use a calculator. So I have 4 times 28, I get 112, and 1 times 1 is 1, and 112 divided by 1 is 112. So my answer should be 112. Now to check my answer, all I got to do is type in my calculator using parentheses 1 divided by 4 times 112, and then subtract 3, and if my answer is 25, I know that I'm good. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. 1 divided by 4 inside parentheses times 112 minus 3, and I do get 25. So 25 is equal to 1/4 of 112 minus 3. That's my answer to this problem. Let's keep going. Example 4, we're halfway done with this lesson already. We're going to be solving negative 4 is equal to 1/3 of some number plus 2. So I'm going to go ahead and write that. Negative 4 equals equals 1/3 of the number z plus 2. Over here, I'm going to write down what's happening to our variable. So I'm going to draw a line through my equal sign. And looking at the variable, I have z plus 2, so I have plus 2. And then I have 1/3 times z, so I have times 1/3. So these are the 2 things I want to get rid of. First thing I'm going to get rid of is adding 2. Then I'm going to get rid of my fraction by multiplying by the inverse. So I subtract 2, 2 minus 2 cancels out. We have 1/3 z equals a negative 4 minus 2, that's negative 6. Alrighty, we're almost done. We got rid of adding 2, so that's gone. Now we just have to get rid of times 1/3. So I'm going to go ahead and cross this out because I know to get rid of timesing a fraction, I multiply by its inverse. And if I do that to one side, I got to do that to the other. I'm going to go ahead and put 6 over 1. This and this cancel out to equal one letter z is equal to 3 times negative 6, negative 18, 1 times 1, 1. Well, negative 18 divided by 1, that's negative 18, and 1 times z is z, so z is equal to negative 18. That's my answer to this problem, and that's pretty all that this stuff really is. A two-step equation, you want to get rid of addition or subtraction first, typically, and then multiplication or division second, typically. Let's keep going. In example 5, what we're going to be doing is we're solving the equation 6 minus 3 times the number equals 21. So we need to figure out what's happening. Well, it's 6 minus 3 times the number. Well, if I cover up this 6, this looks like that I'm actually multiplying by negative 3. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I do have multiplication of negative 3. And I'm going to put that actually down at the bottom. Now I have to figure out what type of 6 do I have. Since that number's in front, we should probably figure out what type of 6 we have. Well, if I cover up this number, I see that the 6 is actually a positive 6. So I'm actually going to write that it's a positive 6. Because I know that my steps are, the first step is I get rid of the number that's on the same side of the variable, not with it. So I'm going to show you how that works. We have 6 minus 3x equals 21. Draw a line through your equal sign. Well, looking at the variable, 3 is with the variable. So the number I have to get rid of that's not with the variable is 6. And in order to get rid of that number, I'm either going to add it or subtract it. Well, if I add 6, 6 plus 6, it just gets bigger. It goes to 12. So instead of adding 6, I'm actually going to subtract 6. And if I do that to one side, I do that to the other. 6 minus 6, that's 0. So I got rid of it. Now I have negative 3x equals 21 minus 6. Okay, that is 15. So I have a negative 3x equals 15. So I got rid of the plus 6. Now I'm going to get rid of times negative 3. To get rid of times negative 3, we divide by negative 3. And if you divide by negative 3 on one side, you got to divide by negative 3 on the other. Negative divided by negative is a positive. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I can just write x because there's 1x right there. Equals 15 divided by negative 3, that's negative 5. So in this problem, my answer would be x equals negative 5, and that would be correct. In example 6, we're going to be solving a problem 8 minus 3 times the number equals 14. And we're going to kind of set it up the same way. So first thing we do, we say 8 minus, not 1, but 8 minus 3 times the number, so 3x, equals 14. And we're going to write down what's happening on the side with x. Well, that's a positive 8, so I'm going to write positive 8. And this is a negative 3 times x, so I'm going to write negative 3 is being multiplied. If I get rid of these two things, I'll have my answer. So I know I want to get rid of the number that's on the same side as the variable x, but not with the x. Since 8 is on the same side, but not with x, I want to get rid of that first. Well, to get rid of 8, I would not add 8, because 8 plus 8 is 16, it stays there. So in order to get rid of that, I'm actually going to subtract it. And if I subtract it on one side, I got to subtract it on the other. 8 minus 8 cancels out. We have a negative 3x equals 14 minus 8 is 6. Now, if we want to solve for x, all we got to do, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, and we get x equals 6 divided by negative 3, that's negative 2. And that's my solution to this problem. One more problem and you guys are done for a day. I know this was a fast lesson. We're just doing two-step equations and solving them. In our final example, we're going to look at a word problem. It says Chicago's lowest recorded temperature in degrees Fahrenheit is negative 27 degrees. Solve the equation negative 27 equals 1.82 times C plus 32 to convert to degrees Celsius. So we're going to convert negative 27 degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius. And all we got to do is solve this equation to do that. So negative 27 equals 1.82C plus 32. And I'm going to grab my calculator here because I know that I'm going to be doing some different things. First step is I'm going to get rid of the number on the same side as the variable, but not with it. So I'm going to get rid of plus 32 by subtracting 32. And if I subtract 32 on one side, you got to subtract 32 on the other. So first thing I'm going to solve is negative 27 minus 32. This is a negative 59 equals 1.82C, because a positive 32 and a negative 32 cancel out. The only thing we have left to do is we have to get rid of this number that's next to variable, and it's multiplying. To get rid of multiplication, we do division, so we're going to divide by 1.82, divide by 1.82. This cancels out, and we'll get C, and I'm going to go ahead and solve a negative 59 divided by 1.82 is equal to a negative 32.4 degrees Celsius. So this temperature would be a negative 32.4 degrees Celsius if it was negative 27 degrees Fahrenheit. You guys did awesome today. Make sure you like this video. Hopefully you like the fact that it's really short, simple, and to the point. If you have any questions, make sure to ask those in class. Make sure you have your notes, and I will see you on Tuesday. If you haven't yet, make sure you also subscribe. Thank you, and have a good weekend.